for joining us, and thank you to Joey Carano for his wonderful music to start us off. Welcome to La Jolla Historical Society's virtual garden party. We're so happy to see you all here. Lucy Jackson, can you join me?
Hi, Meg.
Lucy. I'm Meg Davis, and along with Lucy Jackson, we are the co-chairs of the virtual garden party of the Secret Garden Tour. We want to thank all of our individual and corporate sponsors for their support, as well as all of the speakers you will hear from tonight. We have an amazing lineup of speakers and information to cover in the next hour and a half. But before we start, let's cover just a few housekeeping items. First, as you know, this webinar is being conducted in Zoom webinar, so it looks a little bit different from what you might be used to seeing in a regular Zoom meeting. You'll be able to see all of the presenters, but you won't see the faces of the attendees as you might in a normal Zoom meeting. And this way, the meeting is more focused and you'll have less distractions. You will be able to type in questions and participate in polls throughout the event, just as you would with a regular Zoom call. And Lucy, over to you.
Thank you, Meg. As we go through the evening, you'll want to have your virtual program guide ready and open because it's going to give you information on the agenda and speakers, as well as links to organizations and items that you're going to see tonight. We have musicians and tabletop displays to delight and inspire you, gardens, garden owners, and garden experts to amaze you, boutique items, paintings from the gardens, and unique experience auction items, and even instructions on how to make a custom summer cocktail. So sit back, relax, and raise your glass and enjoy. And now let me introduce our Executive Director, Heath Fox.
Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the virtual garden party. Each spring for the past 21 years, the La Jolla Historical Society has presented the Secret Garden Tour. This event is an important date on La Jolla's springtime calendar for a number of reasons. First, it's very much a community event, attended by over 1,000 people, most of whom live in La Jolla and San Diego, but also including visitors who travel from other destinations. Second, it brings economic value to the village of La Jolla as visitors patronize local restaurants and merchants. Third, it promotes gardening, which of course is good for the environment and good for the well-being of the people who garden and of the people who enjoy gardens. And lastly, it's an important fundraising event for the La Jolla Historical Society. And the revenue we receive from the tour helps us present year-round exhibitions and education programs, helps maintain our archive for research, and supports our historic preservation mission. And most of these programs and services are offered free to the public, underwritten in part by income from the tour. This year, of course, the tour was canceled because of the COVID pandemic. And instead, we're very excited to present tonight's virtual garden party. We'll start the evening's program, appropriately enough, with the history of the Secret Garden Tour from two people who have been long involved, Susan Vandendries and Devana Hall. So tell us, Susan and Devana, how did the Secret Garden Tour start and what was the inspiration behind it?
Hi, Heath. How are you doing? Well, over 25 years ago, we bought a home in La Jolla, and I was researching the history of my own home and garden in the Muirlands neighborhood. I learned about the mission of the La Jolla Historical Society, and I gave some thought to how I could get others involved and learn about preservation and history of La Jolla. And that was the first seed of an idea. I'm from the East Coast, and I was familiar with a tour on Cape Cod, a similar situation, and my La Jolla real estate agent, Linda Marone, and I met with 4 to 5 other people, including our reluctant husbands. And little did we know, so many years later, it would grow to be a sold-out event every year. I'm really proud of it. It gives so many people an appreciation for our community. And so the committee grew and new ideas sprouted, and it's been very exciting, and I'm really enjoying it, especially watching the connections that people have made in our community. So I want to introduce Devana Hall. Hi, Devana.
Hi,
You came on as one of the generous volunteers to chair the event years ago. I loved working with you. Why did you volunteer, and what have been your favorite aspects of the event?
Well, thanks, Susan. I really loved working with you too. I'd served on the committee prior to chairing it, and I realized it was a lot of fun. The formula was well thought out, and there was so much support. So I agreed to serve, and I'm so glad I did. I met so many wonderful people, and I learned a lot about the history of La Jolla. It definitely made my life richer. It was really enjoyable, and I felt I got in return more than I gave. One of my favorite memories of the year I chaired the event in 2011 is about one of the fabulous 7-acre estate gardens. It had a wonderful children's garden with 3 small playhouses and a unicursal maze surrounding a slide. Rumor had it, when Michael Jackson disappeared, he was staying at this estate and enjoying the children's garden. Being involved and attending the Secret Garden Tour means you learn a lot of intriguing stories. It was in this garden that we sold orchids. I remember the committee was a little hesitant at first, but I can still see the happy attendees walking away with orchids. Susan, you had a good connection with an orchid dealer, and he set up in the garden, and I think they sold out. So many people told me the quality and the price was amazing, and they enjoyed being able to bring a plant home after the tour. Do you remember that?
I sure do. And I know that was almost 6 years ago. That small table of orchids grew and grew in more ways than one, Devana. It was so popular, we invited a few more vendors each year to the grounds of beautiful Wisteria Cottage. Now vendors call us, and they want to be included because they have heard about the event. We've had vendors enthusiastic to return each year and try new ones, creative ones each year. They love the setting, the audience, of course, and being on the lawn overlooking the ocean. They're carefully chosen for their garden-related items, vintage items, craftsmanship. And you know, at the end now, we all have food, we have coffee, and we have music throughout the day. And at the end of the day, wine, and the committee debriefs, and we all get together with all of our guests and visitors, and we have lots of camaraderie. It's a great way to share the stories of the day. It's been very special. What do you think made it all so special all these years, Devana?
Well, one thing that makes the Secret Garden Tour of La Jolla special is the Platinum Tour. Not only can the public buy a self-guided ticket, but people who want an upgraded experience can see the gardens after attending a delicious brunch at a La Jolla venue. It's been held at Estancia, the Beach and Tennis Club, and the Country Club. You board a bus and you're driven to each garden. It's an added dimension to the tour, which always sells out. And another special aspect is the public can see the beautiful gardens while enjoying artists in the gardens and listening to various musicians in the gardens. You know, Susan, many other local tours have imitated this and added artists and musicians to their gardens also.
Yes. Yeah. Well, imitation is the sincerest form of flattery. I think the best aspect, in my opinion, is that guests come away from the experience inspired to preserve their own homes and remodel sensitively. They network with other homeowners to find craftsmen and contractors who are skilled at restoration and preservation. These gardens, buildings, and the stories behind them connect us to our past and I think to each other. I love all the stories. It's my favorite part. And I'm going to end with my favorite story of a woman who came up to me in tears last year. And I thought, uh-oh. But she grew up in La Jolla and she was so grateful for all the friends that she ran into and the memories it brought back to her time as a young girl living in this very special area of California. So thank you, Devana. It was great to see you. I can't wait to see you in 2021.
Thank you, Susan. See you soon in the village.
Okay, bye.
Bye.
So as promised, we have some wonderful music to entertain you tonight. Get your cocktail out. And we have a flamenco guitarist. His name is Fred Benedetti, and he is playing Tempestad by Juan Serrano. So sit back and enjoy. Thanks for being here, everybody.
Now we're going to hear from Historical Society board members and Secret Garden Tour committee members, speaking about memorable gardens from past years. I would like to invite Laura, Molly, Sue, and Sherilyn to join me now. Laura Descharme Convoy, as an architect, you must look at gardens through the lens of design. What are some of the gardens you've seen in past years that impressed you?
Hi, Heath. Thanks. Yeah, I admit I do look at gardens with an eye for design. One of my favorite gardens of all times is the English garden at Sissinghurst Castle. And before you say, hey, wait a second, that's not a La Jolla garden, I'm going to tie it back in. I love that garden for its profusion of plants, its series of spaces, and its somewhat random symmetries, if that makes sense. My favorite local gardens share some of the same elements as those in Sissinghurst. That sense of design, meaning it's got some sort of forethought, serendipity, that pleasing and often playful element of surprise, and then what I call sequential seduction. And by that I mean a garden that doesn't reveal all of its secrets all at one time, but it lures or draws you in so that you can discover those secrets yourself. At Sissinghurst, the owner, Harold Nicholson, back in the 30s, called this a succession of privacies that they had there in that garden. And he considered these connected spaces like a series of escapes from the world. And the garden as a whole was a cumulative escape. And oh my gosh, which of us doesn't occasionally long for a cumulative escape given the current state of things? So on the garden tour, though, I have seen these sequences that I'm talking about. There was one garden in Upper Hermosa that you saw a gate in this huge hedge and along the side street, and you would enter through that gate and suddenly you were in this other world. There are hillside gardens and the sequence might start maybe as an overview at the top of the hill, and you would see these paths that just, they just lure you down there to go discover, what mysteries lay beyond. And then once you get to those garden rooms, those spaces, oftentimes there'll be an opening in a hedge that leads you to the next space for the next surprise and delight. And then as far as serendipity goes, this is one of my favorite moments that came a few years ago at Viking Way. that garden had its succession of privacies. And in one of these little outdoor rooms, I saw there was this small seating area, and it was surrounded by a big bed of Acanthus mollis, which is known as bear's breeches. And it's also known as sea holly. Well, scattered throughout this bed of sea holly were these large glass blue-green orbs that I believe were called fishing floats. And it's what the fishermen use to help float their nets. And so I don't recall if the homeowner intentionally made the connection that she placed these fishing floats in sea holly, but I gave her full credit for it because that extra layer of meaning, that sense of folly and humor, it brought me enjoyment. And so those are some of my favorite memories of gardens on the La Jolla garden tour.
Thank you very much, Laura. Molly McLean, as a professor of history at the University of San Diego, does your knowledge of local history inform your garden memories?
So thank you, Heath. Oh, and Laura, that was just fascinating, beautifully said. Well, I'm a historian, and so I tend to like gardens that can transport me back into time, and particularly to the early days of La Jolla. I was enchanted by the garden at Redwood Hollow Cottages on Prospect Street, and it was on last year's garden tour. And it helped me sort of to imagine what La Jolla would have looked like around 1915, when hundreds of rental cottages dotted the coastline. So Redwood Hollow is a bohemian hotel of sorts. It has 9 shingle cottages on this small lot near the Whispering Sands beach. And some of the cottages actually date to the early 1900s. They've got names like Seagate or Wisteria, Prospect Cove. And these little cottages are surrounded by a lush, overgrown garden of plants. You know, nothing too fussy, nothing too planned. I recall there were ferns, banana palms, canna lilies, bromeliads, and the vines would grow up the walls of the cottages and draped over the top of the trees. There were arbors, little benches where one could sit in the shade, and there were potted plants and geraniums just kind of scattered around to add color. Wrought iron furniture, comfortable wicker chairs. So it was this very kind of eclectic, bohemian nature of the space that really appealed to me. I thought it was kind of reminiscent of the simple kind of outdoor life that attracted so many people to La Jolla in the early years of the 20th century. But of course, this is just one of the many inspirational gardens that I've seen on the Secret Garden Tour. All of them, every garden reflects something of the history of La Jolla, whether it's modern or Mediterranean. And I think we're just really fortunate that owners are willing to share with us their own little piece of paradise.
Thank you very much, Molly. Sue Kalish, you've been long involved with the planning committee for the Secret Garden Tour. What are some of the gardens that were your favorites?
Well, I'm going to talk about being on the committee first. I love co-chairing the event and working with the wonderful homeowners and volunteers. And it really was a labor of love for so many people. I also was a docent on the Platinum Tour for several years. And so I was able to share information about the gardens and the day with our guests as we moved from home to home on the bus. The one garden that really stood out for me was Walter Monk's garden. As many of you probably know, Walter Monk was a scientist and professor at Scripps Institution of Oceanography and a true La Jolla and national treasure. When we got to the house, Walter and Mary Monk graciously greeted us at the door like we were really their guests and welcomed us into their home. And to me, it was just the absolute perfect blending of La Jolla history and the garden tour, and a goosebump moment. I have goosebumps now thinking about it. I think we all got back on the bus and just were so charmed by that absolutely magical moment. And then the other thing that stands out for me is that we saw so many beautiful, elegant, over-the-top, spectacular gardens. But when I would get back on the bus with the guests, they were always most excited and inspired by the smaller gardens that reflected the creativity and the personality of the homeowners. There was one house in Bird Rock that featured a mural painted by the homeowner for her grandchildren, and a house in La Jolla Shores, and you'll meet that owner later, that featured unique wall art, planters, and furniture made from salvaged materials. And as the guests got back on the bus, you could almost see them planning their next project as soon as they got home. So the Secret Garden Tour has just always been a very special day filled with beautiful gardens, gracious homeowners, and delighted guests. So I'm looking forward to next year, and I hope to see some of you on my bus. Thank you.
Thank you, Sue. Carolyn Gallinson, you've also been long involved on the Secret Garden Tour Committee. What memorable gardens come to your mind?
Thanks, Heath. Well, looking back over the years, I realized how many of the gardens had features that were at the time fairly cutting edge, at least with my knowledge. And now they're very much accepted by all the gardeners around. One of my favorites was from our very first year in 1999. I was a docent for Fox Hill. At that time, it was the largest state of the owner and publisher of the San Diego Union Tribune. Guests had to be bussed up to the gated entry, and from there they were able to look through all the variety of trees, mature trees, plants, and statues. Some of the statues were actually rather whimsical. Herbs and a lemon tree by the kitchen door created a chef's garden. Impressive also was the bouquet garden, where the blooms were used to provide fresh bouquets every day for the home. In 2014, when I was chair of the tour, and during some of our more severe drought years, one of our garden owners had started to replace her grass lawn with drought-tolerant plants. She commented that she wasn't taking out all the grass at once as a favor to her husband, but she also had started moving into using native plants, which would give even better adaptation to the environment. Her garden was interesting because it showed that color and texture were not missing even with her new style. That same year, we included a Platinum Tour bonus garden. A young couple renting a small 800 square foot home had transformed their larger backyard into outdoor living spaces. They filled every nook with ingenious placement of plants, many of which were succulents, and garden furniture that they had conceived and handcrafted, often using salvaged materials. Plants in their often unique containers and the furniture could be easily moved when the time came. I think this garden became a favorite with many of our guests as well. Back to you, Heath.
Thank you, Sherilyn. And thanks to all of our panelists. Thanks to all of our panelists for sharing your memories with us this evening. You know, it takes a lot of year-round planning to present the Secret Garden Tour and a lot of volunteer support, especially on the weekend of the tour. Starting in 2018, we began a collaboration with the local chapter of the National Charity League to provide opportunities for mothers and daughters to volunteer for the tour, earn community service hours, and see the gardens together. To discuss further, we're joined now by Catherine Gaynor and her daughter, Charlotte, and Claudia Casta Picaro and her daughter, Marianne.
My name is Catherine Gaynor. I am the immediate past president for National Charity League. This is my daughter, Charlotte Gaynor, and we're joined by our VP of Philanthropy.
Hi, I'm Claudia Casta Pecora, and this is my daughter, Mariana Pecora.
So just a little bit of history of what National Charity League is, or otherwise known as NCL. We are a nonprofit organization that assists other nonprofit organizations throughout San Diego and San Diego County. We work with approximately 29 different charities, and of those charities, the La Jolla Historical Society is one of them.
The Historical Society is one of our favorite philanthropies. Offers so many opportunities for our members to participate anywhere from baking cookies for their board meetings, offering internships to our TikTokers, which are the girls. And we also really enjoy participating every year in what is their biggest event, the Secret Garden Tour.
Well, I think what's really special about NCL and specifically NCL with the La Jolla Historical Society is that we're mother-daughter organizations. And so my mom and I have really bonded over art and learning about art together over our relationship at home, and being able to move that into a volunteer space and being able to give other people that same gift is something really special for me. And so I've really enjoyed being a greeter at the openings for the different exhibits. And that's always my favorite NCL event, and I try to sign up for all of them.
One of the events that they hold is the Young Architects Program, and through that we were able to tour a bunch of the homes in La Jolla that had a lot of historical significance, ranging from a house that was built on the grounds of an old Shell gas station to a home that, like, you look at it from the front and you don't really think anything of it, and then you go inside and it's just everything has something to do historical with La Jolla, and that was just so amazing to see and to get to learn about.
The Secret Garden Tour has been one of our favorite things to do in the summertime, to volunteer, to be a greeter at the door, or to be able to stand in your favorite garden and just enjoy all the beauty that La Jolla has to offer. I myself have had 2 of my homes in the Secret Garden Tour, so I know how incredibly, how much work goes into actually preparing those homes.
I've really enjoyed being a greeter for the Secret Garden Tour. We've done it, I think, the past 2 years now. And we've had so many fun experiences just seeing all of the gardens that we get to stand in front of and guide people into, as well as seeing like all the people that come.
We are so looking forward to participating in it next year, and hopefully we can continue this wonderful relationship that we have with the La Jolla Historical Society.
Couldn't agree more. Thanks so much.
Thanks very much to all the mothers and daughters of the National Charity League for their support. We really appreciate it. One of the special features that is integral to the Secret Garden Tour experience are displays in each garden of tabletop settings created by professional designers. Here's a look at some of those creations, accompanied by original music composed by David Whitman. A much loved part of the Secret Garden Tour is the Secret Garden Boutique, held on the day of the tour on the campus of the La Jolla Historical Society. Here to talk about the boutique is its founder, Susan Bandendries.
Hi, this is Susan. I'm back again with a little description of something that we added to the garden tour several years ago. It's been very successful, and this is the Secret Garden Tour Boutique. And it's really grown and it's open to the public. And I'm so glad we're featuring it today on this virtual tour since we can't be with them in person. Their websites and other sites such as Etsy are beautiful to look at. You should browse them. There's so much more to see, but we have some highlights here that we thought you might enjoy. But don't forget the online shopping opportunity after today is over. These garden vendors and craftsmen are usually spread out on a green lawn under the trees at Wisteria Cottage. They're small, local, family, and individually owned freelancers who create amazing gifts and garden items. Many of them are stay-at-home moms and empty nesters, so I love supporting them and enjoy seeing these one-of-a-kind handmade items. The Peppermint Pig is one of my favorites. They make beautiful purses and they have bags from Madagascar, eco-friendly sunglasses, goat soaps and lotions, beautiful jewelry, just to name a few things. Check out the live plants section and the moss ball arrangements. Of Leaf and Star is what a creative gal she is. She uses raw, natural elements from nature to create these eco-chic art items. Maria by the Sea, these are two enthusiastic sisters who love the creative process using sea glass. Don't you just love those butterflies from the Flutter Factory group? Twyla's Spices and Rubs are small batch with no additives or preservatives. Great for end of summer barbecues and fall cooking. We also have local plant and garden experts that come to the Secret Garden Tour Boutique, flower and plant societies in San Diego. And this year, the San Diego Floral Association has something very special, the complete writings of Kate Sessions in California Gardens. The book is illustrated with vintage nursery advertisements and rare historic photographs. Their website is sandiegofloral.org, so check that one out. It's not too early to start thinking about Christmas gifts, and I want to thank all the vendors and the small business owners who have spent their time over the years to create and imagine and continue the entrepreneurial spirit in our community. They are really, really amazing people. And we have one of our special vendors with us to prepare a special Secret Garden Tour cocktail. Brianna owns a Beverage Botanist. This is so cool. They make locally sourced and botanically inspired craft cocktails. It's a great concept, and we are so glad you could be with us this evening. I think some of our viewers have prepared this cocktail and are tasting it as we speak. Thanks, Brianna, for being here.
Hey everyone! Today I want to share with you this bright and simple to make summer cocktail recipe. It's locally sourced, of course, and also low ABV, which means that the amount of alcohol in it is lower, significantly lower than your average cocktail. And it's going to be highlighting summer stone fruits, beautiful stone fruit in season right now. Today we're using plums, and I'm calling this one Sun's Out, Plums Out. So let's get started. First of all, we're going to be using 2 ounces of dry vermouth. I like Dolan, but you can find really any one that works for you. And then we're doing 3/4 ounces of rose syrup. So this is rose petals, culinary grade rose petals, or even rose tea if you have it, in a simple syrup, 1-to-1 ratio. You know I like those flavored syrups. And then we're gonna do 1/2 ounce Aperol, which I love to put in everything. It's so bright and fun for the summer. And then 1 full ounce of plum puree. I just chopped up a plum and put this in the blender pulsed it for a bit to get a kind of a puree consistency, but you could also muddle the plums in the drink if you don't have a blender at home, or if that doesn't work for you, the muddle would be fine. So 1 ounce of that. And then last but not least, 1/2 ounce of lemon juice, fresh squeezed. Alrighty. Add a little bit of ice. shaken. That feels right. And I'm going to strain into a coupe glass today. You could put this over ice if you wanted to, but I'm not going to. And I'm using this fine mesh strainer. I'm using this big sized one from my kitchen just to demonstrate that you can totally substitute your standard kitchen items for basic bar tools. So if you don't have a bar strainer or a fine mesh strainer that a bartender would use, which is like half the size of this, then you can find some kind of strainer, a tea strainer, what have you, in your kitchen and use it. And that's what I'm going to use. And we're going to strain over. Oh, look at the color of that. That's so pretty. A lot of plum. Nice, yummy plum chunks in there. And bam. Sun's out, plum's out. Cheers. That's delicious. The plum's really there. The plum and the rose are doing a great dance together. Hope you enjoy. Cheers.
The La Jolla Landmark Group is a support organization of the La Jolla Historical Society, and its members are owners of historically designated landmarks in the community of La Jolla. We'll hear now from Landmark Group founder, Shona MacArthur.
Hi, I'm Shona MacArthur, and I'm a member of the steering committee for the La Jolla Landmark Group. Landmark Group consists of owners of designated historical properties in La Jolla, and we help the La Jolla Historical Society to preserve our architectural heritage. The group's steering committee is actively involved with the society in various projects. We sponsor each year a series of events during La Jolla Landmark Week, having workshops to help people learn how to designate their homes, celebrations of properties in town, and gatherings of landmark owners. We also sponsor a new award each year called the Jolla Award to recognize excellence in restoring and preserving homes in La Jolla. As of 2019, the City of San Diego Historic Resource Board has designated 152 sites in La Jolla. These landmarks consist of 125 privately owned designated structures, 24 publicly owned, and 3 archaeological and landscape sites. So bottom line, we celebrate and honor and thank the owners of historic buildings in La Jolla who dedicate their time and effort and resources to help preserve La Jolla's unique architectural history.
Meg, we heard earlier of memories from gardens past. Shall we ask our audience about their favorites?
Vote for your favorite garden from 2015 to 2019. There have been so many amazing gardens over the years, and our committee identified our favorites from the last 5 tours. It wasn't easy, as they were all wonderful. Let's take a look at these gardens, and at the end, we will ask you to vote for your favorites from each year. Be sure to take notes as we go along. This Spanish colonial home, designed by architect Edgar Ulrich, has dramatic step terraces that lead to the front door. At the rear of the house, one patio connects to a wine cellar and tasting room. A second patio has ocean views over rooftops and magnolia trees. We were all surprised that day by an engagement, and she said yes. The Monk House, included on the Platinum Tour, is surrounded by mature Monterey pines. Fig vines cover the walls of an outdoor amphitheater built to host Shakespearean plays and musical concerts. The garden is perched over a canyon that remains a natural wilderness of sagebrush, willows, and grasses. This ranch-style house on Inspiration Drive has a gently sloping front lawn shaded by pine and melaleuca trees. Camellias, azaleas, and begonias provide brilliant spring color. Behind the house are dining pavilions and a pool. Graded terraces lead down a steep canyon and provide stunning views of Bird Rock. Be sure to take notes for your favorite from 2015. Architect Robert Mosher designed this redwood and glass house for his family. Garden paths cross under mature trees and bamboo to form a maze. Lemon, coral, and mulberry trees complement a zen deck and sand garden. Rose beds are terraced up the hillside and offer views of the Pacific Ocean. This tranquil, rustic garden in Upper Hermosa was lovingly cultivated by a homeowner who has a passion for repurposing vintage bird cages, garden tools, and salvaged architectural details. The mature landscape includes palm trees, large liquid amber, and pittosporum trees. This hilltop estate in the Marylands surprises with dramatic views. The large Mediterranean-style house is surrounded by a 2-acre garden with pergolas, arbors, and winding paths. Plantings include lavender, birds of paradise, and palm trees. Hillside paths lead to a serene pine grove. And make your notes for your favorite from 2016. Architect Edgar Ulrich designed this charmingly eclectic house in the French Norman and English Tudor style. Flagstone paths covered with sweet Elysium lead to beds of lavender, pink, and white flowers. Climbing roses and wisteria vines curl up trellises to create the picture of a romantic garden. This 1930s Spanish eclectic home reinvents the old-fashioned kitchen garden by incorporating fruits and vegetables into the landscape itself. Grapevines meander up stairwells while artichokes lend a decorative air to planters. Views of the ocean are complemented by a pool rimmed by bachelor tiles. This La Jolla Rancho garden is covered by mostly native drought-resistant plants over an acre of land. A trio of giant ficus trees at the front of the house provide an immediate focal point. At the entry is a magnificent gate set in stonework which opens to reveal the panorama within. And make your notes for your favorite 2017 garden. A 1930s Mediterranean-style home anchors a large landscape garden with multiple entertainment areas. Pomegranate, plum, peach, lime, and grapefruit trees are surrounded by beds of bright, vividly colored annuals and perennials. A large pergola is covered by a Cecile Brunner climbing rose. This 1928 Tudor-style home is fronted by a distinctive iron fence. The garden features mature peach and plum trees at the front of the house, along with a California native oak. At the back of the house, Pennsylvania blue stone connects patio, pool, and dining areas. Courtyard gardens provide outdoor living spaces for this 1927 Camino de la Costa home with stunning ocean views. A tile mural came from a historic house in Mission Hills. A hillside vegetable garden with spinach and tomatoes accompanies fruit trees. And make your notes for 2018. The owners of this West Marylands garden bought the property next door and extended their garden to 2 acres. Handcrafted gazebos, arbors, and pergolas frame ocean views. Mexican art pottery filled with hot pink bougainvillea dazzle around the pool. Architect Thomas Shepard built this home at the edge of a canyon. The amphitheater-like space in the front of the house has a large garden planted with annuals and perennials. It featured a whimsical golf theme in 2019. Brick walkways and stairs at the back of the house are flanked by rosemary hedges and seasonal plantings. Creative use of salvage, old doors, gates, spools, and other finds define this garden in La Jolla Heights. The backyard and side gardens function as outdoor rooms for entertaining. The front yard features a faux riverbed with a school of fanciful fish swimming on stakes. And make your notes for your 2019 favorite garden. Vote now for your favorite from each year.
Thank you, Meg. We're now going to turn to the question of what makes a good garden. Well, when we're selecting gardens for the Secret Garden Tour, there are several things we keep in mind. We like to showcase a mix of garden styles that range from cottage gardens, Mediterranean and desert gardens, small courtyard gardens to estates on a grand scale, and gardens that have a contemporary flair. Some of the gardens on the tour are well-manicured, landscape architect designed. Others are more crafty, products of dedicated green-fingered homeowners. We're interested in how the garden relates to the architecture and the buildings on the site. And we like to include a few landmark historic homes on the tour. We're interested in the plant varieties and plant diversity and plant associations, how plants are placed in the garden in relation to one another. We're looking for practices of landscape sustainability, the structural elements of the garden, and of course, the history of individual gardens. And finally, we're also looking for creativity, ideas in the garden that can be shared with other gardeners, ideas people can take home and adapt in their own gardens. With us tonight are garden owners who have been on the tour in past years, and I'd like to pose this question to them. What makes a good garden? Would Deborah, Erin, Catherine, and Claudia please join our panel? Deborah Duford's garden was on the tour in 2017. Deborah, let's start with you. What makes a good garden?
Well, thank you, Heath. It's a pleasure to be here tonight with everyone. I would say that there probably isn't one definition of a good garden. I think it's very personal. It's very individual, and I think it stems from your own passion, your own dream. For me, I had my mother's garden in mind, but the tricky part about that was that it was in Connecticut, and I was now in California, so I had some negotiating to do with my xeriscape landscape architect, and we wound up with something to me that matched the home. So we took the home as the common denominator into anything we chose, and lived here for a while to get a feeling of what the story was that the home told. We designated our home, and through that process, we studied a lot about the history of the young man and woman that purchased it. It was after World War II. They came from Europe. There was a lot of European thought and influence that went into it. And so we kind of fell in love with that idea and came up with something very textural. Lots of different shades of color, greens, silver, yellow, blue, greens, and as much fluffy, perennial type looking plants as I was allowed. A lot of, she stuck in quite a few succulents. I'm making friends with succulents and enjoying that. But the whole thought of matching the home to the garden has been such a pleasure for me to share.
Thank you, Deborah. Erin McConkey's garden was on the tour in 2017, and she hosted the 2018 Friday evening garden party. Erin, what makes a good garden?
Well, I like all sorts of gardens. So when I've attended the garden tour myself, what I like is, anything from the high-end professionally designed gardens that you've had the best landscape architects in town come in and put them together. And then I like the gardens where the homeowners have done it themselves. So I like anything that shows some thought and intention and where you can really tell that the homeowners care. But when it came to what I wanted in a garden, my home's property actually sold us on the house because I wanted a garden where everything is not revealed at once, where you can travel through different spaces and different rooms and experience different views and vistas and different, types of spaces. So when we found our house, the plant life was, a little bit tired. It probably hadn't been updated in about 30 or 40 years, but it already had the infrastructure and the hardscaping in place, all the walls and gates that divided up the space into many rooms that I could work with. So when we came in, I was able to put in a shade garden, put in a vegetable garden, put in courtyards and pathways, and really work with the structure that was already there in this original 1931 house. And so that made it a garden that is good to me.
Thank you very much, Erin. Catherine Lee's garden was on the 2019 tour last year. Catherine, what makes a good garden?
Thanks, Heath. I agree with your introduction that the Secret Garden Tour offers so many great gardens, not just good gardens, but great gardens, and a variety, like Erin said, from well-manicured gardens and estates that you are wowed by the architecture and the views and the whole package. And then there are other gardens that the homeowners have clearly put in a lot of effort and time, and they've been very deliberate and careful, and you find creativity. And when I went on this Secret Garden Tour as a participant, I was really inspired by the latter. We live up in La Jolla Heights and have a modest home, but what I really wanted to do was make our outside spaces more usable for my family. I have 2 teenagers and a husband, and I really wanted us to be outside and enjoying our property. We live in California for a reason. And so I actually found our landscape designer several years ago at the La Jolla Secret Garden Boutique, Eco Design, and worked with them on succulents and low water plants. I had some reservations, as Deborah hinted at, but I leaned into sort of low water plants as the right thing to do, and was really pleased. And once we had done that, I used that really as my base, my palette from which to work. And I spent several years then personalizing it. And I chose to personalize my exterior in a way somewhat similar to Erin, in which things were not all revealed, but I would add that I really wanted some whimsy, some surprising things. I created succulent gardens from old door frames. I used French doors to surround a fountain. I created some a fence in which I hung succulent envelopes. And I used spools that I had salvaged from the Scripps Institute of Oceanography as tables that I would use as platters for other gardens, for other plantings. And I created outdoor spaces that I thought my family would like, and it worked. They did. We all really enjoyed it, and friends enjoyed it. And then I was quite nervous at the Secret Garden Tour as to whether or not others would enjoy this vibe as well. And to my delight, people did. And to me, a good garden is one that you can see people are being inspired from. And it was really delightful to see people getting it and saying, oh, I could do that, or that's a cute idea. I could do that at my home. So to me, a good garden is one that people see and they enjoy, and they take an idea or two away and think that they could implement that at their own home. And the beauty of that is then we're all enjoying our own spaces a little bit more.
Thank you, Catherine, very much. Claudia Johnson's garden was on the 2016 tour. She hosted the inaugural Friday evening garden party in 2017, and she co-chaired the Platinum Tour in 2018. Claudia, what makes a good garden?
Well, my goodness, all the ladies, we've got Deborah and Erin and Catherine just answered for me. Thank you, ladies.
I was inspired by
everything I would say to that, they've answered. And also I want to take it back to Laura Ducharme and Sue Kalish with what they said, because just like Erin and Catherine have just expressed that, I love to have sort of secret spaces and small vignettes and just different areas that are intriguing to our company. And I just, you know, I was honored to be invited, because I'm not going to go into a lot of detail about my garden, but I'm the rusty, cruddy, banged up, repurposed one like that. Because, you know, to make a good garden, it's the beauty's in the eye of the beholder. It's everybody's got their own vibe, everybody's got their own thing, whether it's colorful or natural. And I just wanted to do things that were more repurposed and unique and things that people hadn't seen before. So I just think that just express yourself and be you. Thank you.
Thank you, Claudia, very much. Thanks to all of you. And Meg, do we have any questions from our audience for our panelists?
Yes, Heath, we do have one question that's come in, and I think this is applicable for all of our panelists, so maybe we can have each one of them answer it. And the question is, what did you have to do to get your garden ready for the garden tour?
Deborah, you want to go first?
Yeah. Well, we moved in 2013, and I had the tour in 2017. We lived here for a couple years to get the feel, get the vibe, get the atmosphere in our heads. And so that my garden was very young when we did it. It was, I guess, 1.5 years old. So there was not that much to weed out. It was more of filling in spots that hadn't filled out yet. There were several meetings with the committee that were fun to watch. The artists came and took photographs and wound up painting a picture of my garden that actually sold at the auction. And I thought, oh, I didn't get it in time. But 1 year later, at the next year's auction, that kind person donated it again and gave me a chance to buy the picture of my own garden and actually myself in it. And that was kind of a sweet way to support the Historical Society. So all in all, it's just been a pleasure to see people enjoy and share what we have.
Thanks, Deborah. Erin, over to you.
Okay, well, when we bought this house, my dream was to be on the La Jolla Secret Garden Tour, and I had given myself a 5-year timeline to get it ready. And it actually took 10 years before I got a call from Heath, and I was so thrilled. And when he came and took a peek at it and thought it was good enough, from that point on, I think I had about 9 months to prepare. And I had to finish my garden because it was only about 80% done. So at that point, I had to quickly make decisions about my unfinished sections and get plants in the ground and get structures built. And I did that as quickly as I could, hoping to give the plants a chance to establish themselves and looking their best by May. So, you know, then probably the last 4 months was just pruning, mulching, you know, filling in and trying to find everything I could to make it look its best in May. So it was a lot of work, but so wonderful. And I had the best year, the best weather, rain, just the perfect amount, and everything looked great. And if you were to come to my garden now, it's a lot wilder and it does not look garden tour ready. It would probably take me another 9 months to get it ready if you called me again.
Thanks, Erin. Over to you, Catherine.
Oh, thanks. I will say I drew inspiration from both Claudia and Erin's gardens, so it's a pleasure to be on this panel with you. And I remember going into Erin's garden, and she has chickens, and I was like, what? That's so cool. Who has chickens in La Jolla? So I just love that you showed that. I will say the only thing I can add to this is that it was a tremendous labor of love. We worked, I think, Heath, you gave us sort of a 9-month lead up, maybe longer than that, but I was out working almost every weekend, and I enjoyed it. This is a hobby of mine, so this is what I did, but I was working. And I will say that just when you think your garden is looking its best and you've mulched, mulch is key, by the way. You've got to mulch, just mulch every year. And just when you think that it's looking its best, then along come the Secret Garden fairies, and they add in flowers, they have somebody playing a harp, you know, they've got a painter. It's just magical. So it can't get any better. So that's what I would add.
Thanks, Catherine. Claudia, you have the last word on this question.
Well, to prepare for the garden, let me just say the first thing I did was scream, because I literally could never imagine being invited to be on a tour. So it came as a complete surprise to me. I always do what I love, and my garden's very eclectic. And you know what, I just started, I listened to what you all had to say, and then I decided I wasn't going to have a professional landscaper come in and do my garden for me. I wanted to do it. So it's one of those things that becomes, it's like you want to do it, you got to do it, you have to do it, and you just get it done. So what I did was I took notes. I went around my garden. I have 2 levels, lower level and upper level. And I defined it in different zones. So I said, like the barbecue area, the cook centers, this zone, this is what I need to do. Then I went over to my dining area and said, this is what I need to do. Then I went upstairs to my outdoor living room and said, this is what I need to do. And then I went over to my bird watching area and said, this is what I need to do. So I created these different zones to put in different personality, different rustic things. And of course, my passion is to go antiquing and look at I'm in my craft room, everyone, if you're wondering what this mess is behind me, it's my crafts. And my secret garden tour signs and things like that, my memorabilia from the tours. But I just wanted my garden to represent me. And I have to say, like for me in closing, the garden, okay, I was like a secret garden spy, because the day of, I know many of the homeowners decide to leave and do their thing and be gone for the afternoon. I wanted to hear what people thought, because I never thought I'd be on the tour, and I was really curious. Did they understand what the rusty, cruddy, banged up stuff was? And so I was sort of like a garden spy. I walked around my garden. No, most people didn't know who I was. And I heard the greatest compliments and comments. My heart is still warmed to this day. So when I'm out there gardening today, I am so grateful, because I cannot believe the love that I felt that day. I even saw this gal. My very first job was at Bullock's and department store in the 70s. And I saw a girl I used to work with from the 70s in my garden that I haven't seen since the 70s. And she could not believe I remembered her. It was one of those crazy things. You never know who you're going to meet at the garden tour. And then on the first Candlelight Gardens Parade that I did, I want to thank Catherine Stevens for helping me co-chair that. And I had 100, so the year before the Candlelight Gardens Parade was the garden tour, right? That was 2016. That was by day. And then I had to transform my garden by night, which was a new challenge for me, because I thought, what am I going to do? So Catherine and I, we had 130 candles in the backyard, and it was gorgeous. So I had a nighttime function and an evening function, and they were the best days of my life. So I just want to thank you all so much.
Thank you, Claudia. And thanks to all of our panelists very much. We appreciate your thoughts and input.
Pleasure.
You know, we posed the question of what makes a good garden to landscape architect Teresa Clark of TCLA Studio, who revisited a garden that was on the 2018 Secret Garden Tour, and to Andrew Martin, president of Urban Land Care, who shares some thoughts about landscape sustainability. Here's what they had to say.
Hello, my name's Teresa Clark, and I'm the landscape architect who designed the gardens at 1419 Virginia Way. Those gardens were part of the 2018 Secret Garden Tour of La Jolla. This is the first thing I do. I send a garden questionnaire to my clients. It's a fun homework assignment for them to really give some consideration to how they want their property, whether it's new or they've lived there for a while, to work for them. What's working, what's not working. Some of the questions on the garden questionnaire are: how many family members are there? What are their ages? What are their interests? Do you entertain? Do you entertain a lot of people? Those are really important foundational questions for them to answer to direct my design. My next stop is going to the architect. I want to hear from Laura, her intent for the architecture, room sizes, room relationships. How are they supposed to work for the exterior spaces? The next meeting would be to go see the interior designer. And in this case, that was Kristen Lamoro. Questions I normally ask an interior designer are: what are the types of furnishings you'll be using? The types, the styles, the size, the dimensions, what types of fabrics, the tones of those fabrics. Because really, when you think about being inside the house, that interior designing is the foreground to your views outside to the garden. With all that in mind, I finally get to the job site, and I start to look at the natural factors on the property. The sun, the wind exposure, off-site noise from traffic, what is the neighbor proximity? Now I can start my schematic design. The schematic design is really a graphic communication tool that has taken all those thoughts and communications from questionnaires and meetings, getting it down on paper so we can all look at it and evaluate if we agree with what we see. Why don't we look and see how we applied those design principles to 1419 Virginia Way Gardens? The first one that I would receive is the survey. This is critical amount of information to start for the design. It shows the existing house, all the existing conditions that we need to know. The historical house in this location, hardscape elements that would either stay or be determined to be removed, the walkway up from Virginia Way. It shows all the existing trees that, again, I evaluate to make sure that they're healthy to bring forward, and also the topography information. Critical first piece of paper to have to launch any design, whether it's architecture or garden. The second plan I received from Laura Descharmes, the architect, indicates the historic home here and what the clients had asked her to do, which was to add on a contemporary new garage, second-story guest room, and an outdoor dining pavilion. This plan starts to indicate the garden design areas that I have to work with, including the swimming pool that the client had indicated that they wanted a part of the exterior design. You can see that the front is not impacted by any of the architectural additions, so that is wide open for me to develop into garden use areas. Finally, we get to the schematic design, and you can see a lot has changed. The old driveway is gone, and it's now replaced with a pool area, use area with the sun loungers, existing tree that was preserved and had its own terrace. The lower existing terrace was remaining, and now it's a really cozy, fantastic courtyard that relates to the new kitchen and the entrance foyer. The new pavilion has its own barbecue area, and again, these trees, fantastic armature for doing night lighting, because day and night use equally important in this garden, especially in these more courtyard gardens. The front, you can see the old palm tree was saved and the existing walkway. Now this area has a whole new use. Instead of just getting to the front door, this walkway now takes you to a view terrace that captures the view of the ocean just beyond Virginia Way. Some of the old trees were maintained, and you can also see the client wanted some edible garden areas, one of her interests, and those were neatly stashed behind a privacy hedge, taking advantage of all that beautiful sun exposure. This was really an exciting garden to lay out because so many aspects from the client's questionnaire were able to be included in this design, from water features to edible gardens to view terraces, and now even this little side yard became important, a companion to the living room with a fire element and, again, additional seating. Now every square inch of this property is being utilized for enjoyment and experience in the garden. The next phase that I mentioned in the design process was design development, and you can see that the schematic design was further developed to include now a spa, more sun in this area. As the design as the project continued, the client determined that they wanted more sun into these areas here. So now this one remaining tree turned into more of a living sculpture focal point for this room here and this, which again, fantastic use of the canopy for downlighting to create that beautiful night mood and ambiance. Front is still pretty much intact from the schematic design, so really the minor changes were more internal and again further development. One other decision point was to use more traditional materials in this back to play off the contemporary architectural addition, and more exotic plants were used for the gardens to play off the historic house. So sort of a reversal one might obviously think to use. It was really accentuating the beauty of the historic with exotic and the beauty of the contemporary with traditional. Let's look at some photos of the garden. This front photo, again, shows some of those exotic plant materials I just talked about. Love the combination of a rich burgundy leaf with this highly textured acacia against a clipped lawn. Very exotic, very contemporary and sculptural in nature. Some of this walkway coming up to the front door, now remember it's servicing this view terrace looking off into the ocean. We're also able to get some gardenias in there to get some fragrance. It's really important on garden designs not only to have visual beauty and experience, but also fragrance. fantastic shot of one of my favorite combinations of succulent shrubs with these leafy woody shrubs. This is snowbush with Senecio dakari, and again with this grapevine coming up there. The combination is seasonal, all year round colors, seasonality with the grapevine, and again using that historic railing right there for the vine to climb on as well. Just beautiful combination of new with the old. That side yard that was nothing before now became a gorgeous, fragrant-filled walkway connecting the front area to the pool area. Hedychiums grow in Southern California, fantastic, plumerias, and there's that crinum lily from the front reintroducing itself for that bold color. This photograph shows one of my favorite things to do, again, bringing something old into the new. This was one of the original iron grills that we repurposed into a simple garden gate. And again, it's tucked in that lush vegetation of the Hedychium gingers, our privacy hedge, our crinum lilies leading back to the pool. This is an example of, even in that deep courtyard where we're using that exotic plant material that I mentioned in the front, playing off of one of those historic walls that are still present in the back garden. This plant is fantastic. It blooms starting in 4th of July and continues all the way to Christmas. Ground bromeliads, a real exotic pop. So I love this photo because, as I mentioned in the design development, we added a spa to the end of the pool. And this is a view spa. Being rectangular formed, it's really one orientation view. And that is of that ocean that you can see in the background. Just an amazing opportunity that we were able to take advantage of. This concrete coping works beautifully and again complements that traditional wood decking that we used as the pool deck. And then this plant material, again, highly encouraged to use the plumerias. This one will not get any larger than this because the intent was that the architecture and the garden relate to each other rather than the garden covering up this really unique historic elevation of the house. And there's the old palm tree. He's still there, part of this new garden. Beautiful composition. Hey, I really hope you enjoyed revisiting 1419 Virginia Way Gardens with me. And if you had an opportunity to go there in 2018, I'm glad. It's a really special garden that mixes the exotic and the traditional in new, fresh ways for a garden presentation. Thanks for listening.
Hello everyone, my name is Andrew Martin. I am the president of Urban Land Care. Urban Land Care is a full-service commercial and residential landscape company specializing in landscape maintenance for the greater San Diego area. We were recently awarded the contract to perform the landscape maintenance for the town of Bird Rock in La Jolla, California. So I was asked to speak about sustainable landscape practices that we implement as a company and that you can implement in your garden at home. Environmentally friendly horticultural practices is what we're going to review today. Creating a sustainable landscape, ocean-friendly design, or an organic garden involves a few simple steps that will go a long way. Sustainability is about making greener choices that have a positive impact on the environment. The best way to develop a green landscape is to start by working with nature and embrace what you have. The climate where you live and surface features of your property will have an effect on plant life. Going green is implemented by minimizing waste, conserving water, recycling yard trimmings, creating a compost pile, avoiding pesticides, and using organic products. These are a few ways that you can implement environmentally friendly horticulture practices, and throughout this video, we will discuss a few more options that you can implement in your garden at home. As Urban Land Care is growing, we are expanding our geographic footprint throughout the coastal communities of San Diego. During this time, as a president, I am trying to focus on not only ocean-friendly gardens, but our horticulture practices and how we can be sustainable to protect our waterways and oceans. Did you know urban runoff from gardens and hard surfaces is the #1 source of ocean pollution? In that runoff are pollutants such as pesticides, herbicides, and fertilizers, which we all use in our gardens, engine oil, exhaust, and brake pad dust, as well as exhaust from utilities, and also bacteria from animals. So when practicing your horticulture and your garden maintenance at home, try to be aware and implement safe practices to protect our oceans and waterways. Commit to the care and preservation of our natural resources. Hand pull weeds or use a hand pick and leave the chemical sprayer behind. This will avoid harmful chemicals getting into our waterways. Adopt an integrated pest management system, also known as IPM. Here you will see a few pictures of how we implemented IPM in the Bird Rock community. When we started the project, we noted all of the myrtle shrubs were affected by rust. No one had seen rust like this before on a myrtle shrub. Instead of using very strong chemicals, we were able to implement IPM and hard prune all of the shrubs, give all the plants adequate water and fertilizer, and they responded within weeks, looking better than ever. Create a compost pile. Gather all organic materials to be converted into fertilizer. You can use a compost bin or the method known as topical composting. Replace needy plants. Switch to native plants or succulents which use less water. Grass cycle turf areas. Use mulching mowers that leave grass clippings on the lawn when mowing. Grass clippings will decompose quickly and release valuable nutrients back into the soil. This will reduce water and fertilizer usage and green waste generation. Replace gas-powered equipment with electric or hand tools. We also implemented on various properties electric blowers earlier this year. Conduct an irrigation audit. We suggest checking your irrigation monthly to verify nothing is broken, identify ways how you can improve your system and make it more efficient. Here's an example of the use of MP rotator nozzles. These nozzles are water-saving nozzles and use significantly less water than your standard spray nozzles. And lastly, optimize landscape designs to enhance sustainable features. Thank you for watching our video on sustainable landscaping. We hope that you learned some things that you can use in your garden at home. At the end of this video, you will have all of our contact information, and feel free to reach out to me and my team anytime. Have a great evening, everyone, and be safe.
Earlier, we talked about tabletop designs in the gardens of the Secret Garden Tour, and throughout this presentation, you've heard music, which is offered live in each of the gardens on tour day. Additionally, there are artists painting in the gardens, creating a visual record of the tour. You can see a selection of artworks from the past 2 years on our website at lajollahistory.org/events/Secret Garden Tour, and these are available for purchase with a portion of the proceeds donated to the Historical Society. Here's a review of these paintings with Leah Higgins.
Hi, my name is Leah Higgins. I am a local La Jolla lady. I started working in the Secret Garden Tour probably in 1998 as a docent. When I got to be an artist, I was honored, and now I'm in charge of arranging the artists for the garden. I have usually 10 artists, and there's usually 7 gardens. 6 or 8 months prior to the garden show, I try very hard to get artists who are different. So there's planarists, there's studio artists, there's watercolors, acrylic painters, oil painters, impressionistic, realistic. I try to get an assortment each year. Then the artists will go and meet up with the owners of the homes, and they will go to the garden and they will take pictures, or they might sit in the garden and paint that day or 2 or 3 times to get whatever they wanted to capture in that individual's gardens. One thing that's really fun that I always enjoyed is each year when I painted in the garden, to see the variety that the owners would put together, and you can see their personalities in how they arrange their gardens. And now we have a selection that is being shown to you for purchase to the public of their interpretations of this year's gardens. And we've been very discreet because we didn't want to give away where they are. Thank you so very much for being with us tonight, and want to thank you from all of us artists too. So we sure hope that you really do look at some of these paintings and maybe consider purchasing, because 20% of it goes to the La Jolla Historical Society. Thank you.
Thank you, Leah. This year, we're offering some exceptional experience auction items in an online raffle. Meg and Lucy, can you tell us more about this?
Bid on once-in-a-lifetime experiences and support La Jolla Historical Society. We have some unique experience auction items you will not find elsewhere. Let's take a look at them now. Experience a beach picnic on the sand at La Jolla Beach and Tennis Club. The winner and 5 friends will be hosted by a La Jolla Historical Society board member to a picnic dinner with wine on this beautiful private beach in La Jolla Shores. You won't want to miss out on this special opportunity to enjoy the beauty of a unique and historic destination in La Jolla. Enjoy a guided virtual wine tasting via Zoom for you and 5 friends with wines from Napa, Sonoma, and France. These limited edition wines will appeal to everyone, whether you're a wine connoisseur or a casual wine enthusiast. Your virtual wine journey can be customized to meet your preferences and will include food pairing suggestions to enhance the tasting. Experience a 1-hour in-home private educational cocktail experience with Brianna Wilkerson of the Beverage Botanist, who we saw tonight. All ingredients, alcohol, and glassware are provided for up to 6 people. She will teach you how to make 2 different seasonal cocktails with instructions and take-home recipes. Learn the tricks of the trade to create your own craft cocktails while gaining sustainable, eco-friendly tips. Enjoy a walking tour of famous locations in the village of La Jolla, led by historical experts. The winner and 5 friends will spend 2 hours viewing significant La Jolla landmarks, including early beach cottages and architectural styles from the 20s. You and your friends will be regaled by unique stories and facts about the people who lived in La Jolla. You'll amaze your friends and family with tales of all you have seen and learned.
Experience a personalized tour of historic Balboa Park and a behind-the-scenes tour of the Spreckles Organ Pavilion, led by the executive director. You and 9 of your friends will enjoy a private guided excursion through Balboa Park's gorgeous gardens and iconic architecture while learning about the history of the largest urban cultural park in North America. Don't miss a chance for a once-in-a-lifetime tour of the largest outdoor pipe organ in the world. Enjoy a behind-the-scenes tour of the San Diego Model Railroad Museum. You and up to 9 of your friends will see over 27,000 square feet of trains, trestles, and track located in the heart of Balboa Park. The backstage tour will be led by club volunteers who offer insights into the layouts, which are based upon actual historical prototypes. Whether you are young or young at heart, you will be amazed by this unique and special place. And a fabulous scarf and necklace. J. McLaughlin's Square Giselle scarf in lemon squeeze in rich silk and cotton is elevated in look and feel. Wrap it, knot it, and drape it as a finish to every look. It is paired with a stunning Ethiopian Coptic cross necklace, which has West African green glass beads, African amber, and checked glass, and is handmade by Anne Craig. All these exclusive experiences can be redeemed for up to 12 months from the purchase date on a mutually agreed upon date. And it's so easy. You can bid on one or several experience items by simply purchasing a chance ticket on our website. There are only 50 chances available for each item, so you have a great chance of winning. The auction closes August 28th at 5 p.m. and winners will be notified by email. And now let's return to Heath.
Thank you, Lucy. I would like to take this opportunity to express our appreciation to all of the Secret Garden Tour and Virtual Garden Party sponsors, donors, committee members, and volunteers. These events are only possible with your support, and we thank you most sincerely for your contributions. We're also very grateful to all of our speakers you've heard from tonight during the Virtual Garden Party. And a special word of thanks to Historical Society board members Meg Davis and Lucy Jackson for their leadership and organization of our garden events, and to Sierra Johnson of McFarland Promotions for her skill in managing the myriad logistics and administrative details involved. Lastly, a very sincere thanks to all of you who have been with us tonight for this first ever virtual garden party. And don't forget, visit our website at lajoyahistory.org/events/secret garden tour. Shop for one of the original paintings that you heard about earlier and buy a raffle ticket. Remember that the deadline to buy raffle tickets is Friday, August 28th, after which the sale closes and we'll announce the winners. And please, during these very uncertain times, know that we would be especially grateful if you would consider a donation to the La Jolla Historical Society. And it's easy to do online at lajoyahistory.org/support/make-a-donation. So please visit us there. I'll close with a final thought on our earlier question of what makes a good garden by saying that what really makes a good garden is how well it makes its owner happy. If it brings joy to the gardener who created and cultivates it, then it is a garden doing its job very well. Thank you again for being with us, and we'll see you next spring, hopefully, behind the garden gates of La Jolla. Good night.